Thank you very much, Anson, for taking the time to explain the changes to the upcoming 2026 regulations in such great detail. Now, moving on to the second part, I am responsible for focusing on one particular point for everyone, which is the change to the upstream certification of acceptance. That is, whether your upstream supply chain has OEKO-TEX certified. What impact will this have on your role? What effect will it have on your future applications? There have been some changes here, and it's definitely something worth paying close attention to. Why am I specifically highlighting this part? The main reason I am highlighting this particular point today is because I truly believe it is something that the entire supply chain needs to address immediately. I also want to emphasize to everyone watching that you can certainly start your preparation well in advance. If you have any feedback or suggestions, please feel free to let us know as soon as you possibly can. Now, before I start talking about this specific part of the presentation, I also want to reiterate that when OEKO-TEX announced this new regulation at the beginning of March, we actually held a detailed webinar about it. This online meeting was recorded for your convenience, and you can now access the full recording on 2 different platforms. To begin with, the first platform we are looking at is YouTube, and the second one is Bilibili. The English part of the presentation was presented and narrated by the staff members from OEKO-TEX, and the Mandarin Chinese part was managed by TESTEX, which serves as the only official representative in China, just as always. James, our colleague from Shanghai, was responsible for saying that these 2 webinars are well worth revisiting and listening to. Also, just now, Anson asked me to add 2 things. They are not related to the limit values he just mentioned. Regarding the organic cotton section, we have some good news. We have a platform. After we started collaborating with Textile Genesis, TCs can now be processed on this platform. I believe that for those of you who have issued TCs for organic cotton over the years, this platform should be quite familiar. If you have any questions in the future, feel free to reach out to us. Furthermore, we also have an important new update regarding the Eco Passport, which should have started at some point during the previous year. In fact, when applying for the Eco Passport, you need to provide a biodegradability test report as proof. With this year's update, requirements have relaxed slightly, allowing for self-declaration. Self-declaration is also fine, but the difference is that without third-party certification proving you are biodegradable and only making a self-declaration, your script won't be included, but you can still apply for the Eco Passport. So those are the 2 updates and platforms. Let me take a moment to explain this very clearly to everyone here today. Now, getting to the main point of our discussion, why exactly did I choose to specifically bring up that part? The reason is that it is going to significantly affect a major strategic direction for you when you go through the application process in the future. If it turns out your upstream suppliers are not within your own group, you should really try your absolute best to ensure that nearly 100% of those suppliers are consistently using materials that carry the OEKO-TEX certificate when they are producing your goods. This requirement is specifically focused on the Standard 100 certification. So why exactly do we need to do this? These changes, as you can imagine, have been made with great caution. They have been carefully considered as the impact is significant and affects a large group of stakeholders. In the past, some of your upstream suppliers may not have kept their certifications up to date. The current approach is that you can use testing on non-certified materials as a way to verify. Non-certified materials can still be included in downstream certificate. That's how things are done now. In the future, this will no longer be accepted. What exactly led ERGOTEST to make such a major decision? Furthermore, we really need to explore the underlying reasons. Because what is the market discussing right at this very moment? First, let's look at trackability, which refers to the essential quality of being fully traceable. Second, we must emphasize the vital importance of transparency. Third, there is anti-greenwashing, the absolute necessity of making strictly accurate claims and not falsely stating that something is environmentally friendly or green. These 3 strategic directions are actually all determined by whether we truly believe a certification system is effective and credible. As ARCO, a leading pioneer in our industry and a very widely used institution in the field of sustainable development certification, we must respond to these 3 major trends. Furthermore, this also makes it much easier for us to align with the ongoing development of the Digital Product Passport, DPP, which everyone is currently concerned about. Although it is still in a stage of incomplete implementation, I think the market clearly and distinctly sees its long-term benefits. I am very much looking forward to seeing how we can comply with DPP regulations, and the changes at ErgoTest are also specifically aimed at meeting these evolving market demands, as well as the requirements of the Digital Product Passport. All right, before we actually begin today, I really want to take a moment to reiterate the specific details of the transition period. This is because this particular part is slightly different from the implementation dates of the regulatory changes that Anson just mentioned a moment ago. I truly don't want there to be any confusion or misunderstanding later on in the process. I'm intentionally emphasizing this part right now because of the various lessons we have learned from our past experiences. Usually, if we don't stress it enough and repeatedly remind you to take necessary action immediately, well, if I were in your shoes, I'd probably only realize at the very moment of the restart that things have already changed completely. If the changes you made are just some minor, insignificant issues, then it's honestly not a very big deal at all. For example, if your heavy metal salts increased by a bit or your VOCs went up by 2 more ppm, things like that. It's fine if you only start preparing when things restart in those cases. But if you are talking about the area of regulatory compliance, it is cumulative in nature. So the transition period becomes a very important factor to keep in mind. As mentioned earlier, at the beginning of March, all the regulations were already announced. After all the regulations are announced, there are 3 months. After that, implementation begins, and your test reports will all be evaluated using the new standards. But this particular regulation says change of upstream supply chain. We're talking about whether there are changes in the supply chain. We're talking about a change of upstream certificate of service. This specific project actually has a much longer preparation period. It is currently scheduled to only be fully implemented in the year 2027. But please do not think that after you hear me out today, you can just ignore it and leave it aside for a very long time. The reason I'm bringing up part of this in the webinar, taking a portion to talk about, is intentional. There is a reason for all of this. It is simply because you really need to begin preparing right away. But there is no need for you to be overly alarmed. Don't just say, how can I possibly get this done in 3 months? I can't do it. This regulation and this new rule will not be officially enforced until 2027. So you actually have from right now here in March all the way until the end of December to prepare. Every single year this happens. Whenever there are similar structural changes and you find that you're not prepared in time, you'll come and ask me, when exactly did you tell us about this? I'm telling you right now, since I've said it, I would ask that you please cooperate with us in getting everything ready. As I mentioned earlier, Anson has already outlined the specific regulations and even provided some clear examples. But I'd also like to talk a bit more about how we can actually go about making these changes. It sounds quite complicated. But actually, the first step is that your entire upstream supply chain needs to be compliant. To put it simply, is there any possible way to avoid this? Usually it's like this. Is there any exemption? Everyone will ask this. Is there any exemption? Yes, there are 2 situations. The first is that you apply for an initial certificate. Maybe you have some non-certified materials and suppliers, but the information I have right now is specifically for new projects, and my supply chain is currently rushing to take these orders. I need to use certain external suppliers for which I currently lack any detailed background information or documentation at this moment, but nevertheless, I still need to allow it cover in my new OEKO-TEX certificate. This is the part for new applications, and we can allow you to do it this way. But in the long run, please consider it if you want to work with them for a long time. When future orders are planned to place to this supplier to handle, please tell them that next year or in the coming months, you will need to apply for their own certificate right away. If you don't do that, when it's time for your own renewal, this supplier can no longer be used and you'll have to change to a different one. So this is the very first exceptional case, which is a new application process. The second exception is the process of commission making up. which means subcontracted processing that does not involve any kind of chemical, heat, or wet treatment. This second situation is generally considered acceptable, meaning it is strictly classified as subcontracted processing. These arrangements can be allowed without any major issues, but you must be able to provide clear evidence that the certificate holder legally owns these goods and can also prove that they maintain full oversight and control over them at all times. What I am purchasing is not simply clothing that the factory has already prepared in advance and sold to me as finished stock. Rather, it is a case of truly authentic subcontracted processing where I control the production. I provide a batch of materials and the factory only does the sewing. We also need all those purchase and sales documents. Then you will see where the actual control lies, where the control is. As long as the certificate holder is only subcontracting the sewing to another manufacturer in this kind of situation, the subcontractor is only responsible for sewing. So the making up factory in this case does not need to be included in the process. In addition, there are two examples where a separate certificate is obtained. Actually, apart from these two examples, basically all other cases require the upstream to be certified. To put it simply, once I finish explaining this rule, I understand that when you apply, you will always have all kinds of different case studies. Please let our colleagues know and believe that now you have dedicated clients to handle. If you are a new client and want more information, feel free to contact us. I will also tell you how to handle each situation. But in general, it's really about all the upstream suppliers. It is essential that you find a way to persuade them. Except for these two specific exceptions, why exactly is this matter considered to be so important? Why am I dedicating an entire episode just to talk about it? First, you must understand that this is a major structural change. This affects not only the limit value tables you just mentioned. Furthermore, it is not just a simple change in the testing methods themselves. These are significant modifications that directly impact your supply chain and even the strategic options you have established. So whether you are a brand owner, a trader, commission supplier, or even at the second tier, if you have suppliers, you also need to pay attention to this. This is mostly about to happen. For the time being, what I'm seeing is simply what I mentioned to you earlier. You might only realize when it's time to renew that you can't find it or you can't make the necessary changes. Then when you need to provide documentation, it becomes a big problem. You can't provide it, you can't submit it, and you might be forced to apply for a new one instead. But if you're forced to apply for a new one, the site risk fee will be higher as well. So it is important to realize that this is not something that only comes up when you go to renew your certificate. Even if you decide to resolve it right now, there will still be some subcontractors that you may have kept hidden in the past, but now you will likely have to face them directly. This represents the second major issue you might encounter during this process. The third critical point is the timing. Let me remind you once again, please start getting ready immediately. Both the brand owners and the individual factories will actually be deeply involved in this issue. So everyone needs to be on the same page to ensure a smooth transition and avoid any unexpected delays or complications in the future. This is especially true if you hold a standard 100 certificate. It states as follows, based on partly pre-certified materials. You need to pay attention and action right now. In such type of certificates, basically 95% certain that you'll need to change suppliers, find alternatives, and so on. That's exactly why I need to specifically tell you again and again. So please schedule a meeting with us to talk about it. So after we have discussed all of these points, you might find yourself asking, what should we do? There are three simple rules. First, you need to look at your suppliers, your list, which ones actually have a serve, which ones don't, and have any of them left. That's the first thing. Second, you need to make sure their serve is correct and the scope is accurate. Third, having a much deeper understanding of this actually helps you more easily ensure compliance with the GDP regulations. And basically, it aligns perfectly with the prevailing major trends in the market today. So I've come up with a comprehensive series of steps for you to follow. If you were to find yourself in this situation, you might wonder what your very first course of action should be. As we mentioned earlier, you should conduct a thorough and detailed review of your current supplier list. There is one thing that needs to be done even earlier. In addition to checking your supplier's certificates, it is highly recommended that you first take a thorough look at your own certificates. So, what exactly should you do? If your certificate for 2026 has already been renewed, then there's absolutely nothing for you to worry about at all. Go ahead and check your supplier list. If it hasn't been renewed yet and is only expiring at the end of the year, please make sure to significantly speed up the renewal process. As long as you renew this time under the old rules, you'll buy yourself some extra time and can continue using your original suppliers. For the time being, please continue using the current synchronization method. Then, you should begin to prepare for the year 2027 for those individuals who refuse to apply and ensure they handle both processes simultaneously. So please remember to renew your certificates as quickly as possible so you can continue to follow the old system. That is the first important point. Secondly, you should carefully check your supplier application list. My personal suggestion is to maintain a comprehensive one, such as an Excel spreadsheet or a detailed list showing each supplier's specific search dates, online execution status, and whether they have active suppliers and so on. Thirdly, if there are any suppliers that have not been searched yet, you need to mark them down first. This definitely needs to be handled. I will explain exactly how to discuss it a bit later. Fourthly, you need to have at least one list that actually exceeds the total number of suppliers. That is it. I understand. Okay, whoever needs this specific list should have it. If the company says they do not know, if you want to know exactly how to do it, please contact your dedicated customer service representative or me directly. You can obtain a list from us and we will try to create a helpful template for you. Communicate with your supplier using it. This is the very first action I want to take. The second action is that after you clear the picture, you also need to tell your supplier, regardless of whether they have engaged in fraudulent activities or not, you must tell them about this new regulation. Some people may not have listened because they are simply too busy with too many orders and have not listened to the OEKO-TEX webinars or their internal colleagues. You need to contact them because these management departments may really need to know which specific department is involved in a wall. I am thinking that the sourcing merchant may be involved or even the operations department may be involved. Which suppliers will be unusable or will need to be replaced and so forth. The internal departments truly need to know this. External suppliers, regardless of whether they are taxed or not, you absolutely need to inform them about this regulation. The second action is to inform them first. Please make sure to let them know about this matter. We have been working very hard to communicate this. Both OEKO-TEX and TEX have been making significant and dedicated efforts to spread the word about this. Please help us by spreading this message. If they have been using OEKO-TEX, always using OEKO-TEX to do business, then this is something they definitely need to know. Please help us inform everyone. Thank you. This is the second point. Next, you need to consider which of your suppliers are very important to you. They might be crucial, but they are unwilling to provide the necessary documents. So you have always used your own funds for cert testing and still have to use their materials. In this case, you really need to have a serious conversation with them, maybe arrange a formal meeting. If during the meeting you find it hard to clearly explain the OEKO-TEX regulations, or if you only learned about them today and are unsure how to explain, you are more than welcome to reach out and contact the team at TEX. We will help you communicate with your upstream suppliers. All right. In addition, there's another part I want to mention. I've noticed that some suppliers are already very proactive. As soon as they see the ERPA test regulations, they immediately realize that this is something that can't be delayed any longer, and they have already issued statements to inform others. They tell their suppliers what needs to be done, how things should be handled, and what the requirements are for those names. But perhaps our explanation wasn't clear enough, so there might be some confusion. Let me clarify. One of the most common situations we encounter, especially with Hong Kong applications, is that the direct supplier holds a valid certificate. For example, the certificate holder name is ABC Hong Kong. However, I know for a fact that most Hong Kong companies don't actually have their own products or physical factories. Their actual manufacturing is done in Shenzhen, and the factory located there is called ABC Shenzhen. But they are 100% part of the exact same corporate group. It's not like they're separate or unrelated entities at all. The owners are all from the same group. One location is for production and another serves as the sales office. This is common in Hong Kong. Many providers operate just like this. So these are direct suppliers. Is there a need for direct suppliers? Yes, there is definitely a clear fine for such cases. So, in theory, you can absolutely continue doing business with them. That much is certain and shouldn't be a problem. However, there are some specific issues that might arise, such as if I am personally doing business with them, but then their official invoice is actually issued to me from a different location like Shenzhen, which complicates the entire process. Is that still acceptable? The answer is you can still accept it, as I just said. You can do business with them, but you need to do a bit more. The thing is, if the invoice they issue to you is from Shenzhen and not Hong Kong, that's a bit odd because a sales office should generally use the name of its service holder to issue invoices to you. But sometimes it's hard to say. Maybe you have other reasons for using Shenzhen as the issuing location. Is that okay? Yes, it is. But when you apply, it seems that the current practice is as before. You issue a confirmation letter stating clearly that ABC Hong Kong and ABC Shenzhen are the same company and they are both under HK001234578. That is still acceptable there. So in these situations, we don't want there to be any fear at all. Suddenly, some people say that's not the case and that Shenzhen needs to get separated certificate. That's not true. Although we would welcome it if this is done out of free will, we would be very happy to see that happen. However, regarding changes related to the OEKO-TEX regulations, we have not made such a requirement in this case. Someone also asked whether it matters if the name on some of my invoices is different. When it comes to things like the RMB, does the specific name itself carry a significant connection to this regulation? No, as it turns out, there really isn't one at all. Everyone can rest assured and feel at ease about this. So this confirmation also shows that actually, when you communicate with your supporters, maintaining absolute accuracy is always a necessity. If you have any questions, please reach out to our team so we can speak to them directly. If not, let everyone know, but if we use an incorrect basis, it will cause us a lot of significant confusion. The third action. In addition to informing everyone involved, the first thing we need to do is to start looking at some of the suppliers we need, those that are theoretically safer options, right? If necessary, at most, just like the names mentioned earlier, we need to check if there's anything that requires sending out a formal notification. That's all right. In addition, there are also some things that need to be done better, especially if you are the one, particularly if you are an important support. Take a look to see if he has this matter. And secondly, it's about him. If it's about to expire soon, then please check on it. We all keep an eye on these things. We're constantly checking. It seems like you renewed in the year 2026 following the previous legacy system and then continued to move forward in sync. When you deal with the renewing, you'll also review the process, so you'll know that for 2027, whom suppliers you need to talk to right now. In this case, so please tell him as soon as possible, especially for suppliers. Since the end of 2026 is when those in the later phase expire, please ask him to renew each term quickly. This policy applies to all brand Tier 1, Tier 2 suppliers, and even Tier 3 partners as well. You might also have your own sub-suppliers, so please make sure to let everyone know about these updates. If you can successfully arrange for a quick renewal within 2026, this strategy can buy you some much-needed time. Simply put, that is a very good move. Next, when the major change finally comes in 2027 and suppliers who use non-certified materials will really no longer be accepted at all. You might usually ask a question like, hey, after doing business this way for so many years, I know it's good to use certified materials. I now testing cost is high to handle this way. I already know that, right? Actually, from our perspective, we also want to have fewer tests to do, right? But I really can't find any because maybe the quantity of that fabric I need is very small, or maybe it has some special features, but I just can't find any suppliers for that. So in this situation, I would suggest seeing if you have any way to handle it. Consolidate, meaning maybe there are some orders you can combine with existing suppliers who already have search capabilities and you can ask them to do it. Then next year, you won't have to rely on support from suppliers without certificates. This is our sincere and somewhat painful advice because if you do it this way, in fact, your application testing fees have really become much cheaper. So if you cooperate, not only will your overall transparency or traceability improve, but your testing and certification fees will also decrease as long as the orders are consolidated. Then within the suppliers who have certificate, identify any remaining gaps. Even after you've followed above steps and you still can't find 100% certified materials, if you really can't find it, then we'll move on to the next part. But throughout this ongoing process, if you need to provide training to your suppliers or to your internal colleagues, please reach out and contact us. We actually have the necessary capacity to handle all of that, and we can take it through step by step. We'll discuss how to assign staff to help you communicate effectively, both internally and externally. As I mentioned earlier, I kept thinking about this issue, but there's no way around it. I have to buy from him. We have a very good relationship, and I don't want to change suppliers. He's been unwilling to apply for so many years, so what should I do? I've actually thought of 4 specific steps for you. I'm not entirely sure, since after all, I've not personally worked at a manufacturing factory or a specific brand for long, but based on my own experience and everything that you've told me so far, I've summarized them here in 4 areas for your reference. And I hope it can lead us to a win-win situation. First, please focus on core suppliers and priorities, the popular orders. If it happens to be those orders that involve many non-certified materials, at worst, you just don't take those orders, the ones that are really small anyway. So just pick the most important part to start and find the responsible people who really care and responsibilities for the matter. Second, please go back and clarify what the requirement is. At this point, of course, you need us, and we're more than happy to discuss it with you. Third, I would suggest, as I know your certificate with testing fee is expensive if using non-certified materials, please consider using this testing fee to sponsor your suppliers. If you get their first certificate fee and have good experience, you will not need to support them in long run. They can use that certificate to secure even more significant business. So it's a win-win situation. However, for the very first time, you might want to consider taking these steps to encourage your suppliers. Gathering this information is actually beneficial for everyone involved. In fact, if they choose to apply in the upstream, it can help to avoid situations where your products might fail the test. In the near future, it will truly be up to me to manage it. Only the things done in my factory will be involved in my application. As for the testing fees, let the upstream suppliers handle the things they do and apply for the certificates themselves. Test only what your factory produces actually an ideal approach. However, reaching this ideal approach may cause a bit of growing pains right now. I suggest you consider looking at your original testing fees, see if it's possible. Try to use them to encourage getting the first certificate as an experience. As a matter of fact, I have frequently observed brand owners include their tier 1 suppliers as a common way to encourage them to successfully obtain their necessary certifications. This kind of genuine support is very common in the industry, but in reality, you might consider using this exact same approach starting right now. I don't know if it will be the same in the business world, and I also feel it's not necessarily worth it. There are pros and cons to weigh, which I cannot list them all here, but for now, this is just an idea that we suggest. Fourth, you will gradually need to phase out those who are unwilling to apply. If they don't want to apply, you'll have to find new ones. My most official answer is that use our platform for sourcing. If you are looking to purchase something on the OEKO-TEX platform, you can search for any fabrics, threads, materials, or regions you require using the search engine there. If you are truly unable to locate it, you can also reach out to our colleagues for assistance. We can't help on the whole sourcing process, but can help especially if there's something particularly unique. Still, we will do our absolute best to help. Our expertise isn't specifically in this area, but if we happen to recall anything, we might be able to give you some helpful tips. We remain strictly neutral. We cannot recommend which option is better or worse, as that falls outside our scope of knowledge. However, we will do our best to connect you and help you find exactly what you need. Similarly, if you happen to notice a change in the regulations, if there is a major regulatory change, I actually think that where there is risk, there is also opportunity. If you think, I don't mind if some suppliers, or rather some buyers, are looking for something trustworthy, and I can also accept orders with relatively smaller quantities, I'll still do it. After all, my credibility is already established here. If that's your situation and you're willing to accept orders with a lower MOQ, just talk to us. Our colleagues are very friendly, especially our younger team members nowadays. They are exceptionally friendly and approachable. When you talk to them in these specific situations, we actually want to take on such orders. Whether it's your sales department or the department handling the application, just reach out and send a detailed email to our colleagues, and we will keep a thorough record. If there are buyers or other companies making inquiries, we can also provide them with some helpful tips and guidance. This is exactly what we can do to help you when you are facing suppliers who are not easily searchable. This is the fourth action. I won't take up too much more of your valuable time. To sum up, what we at Testix can help you with in this area is navigating this significant regulatory change and exactly how we can assist you moving forward. The first thing is, if after listening you still don't know what I'm talking about and you don't know what to do or what plans to make, you can come to us. We can discuss your specific case and you'll understand better how we can help you make a plan. Second, about mapping. I'm talking about mapping. Do you have TempPay? We really like TempPay. If you want TempPay, ask us for it. As for how to map it, we'll tell you what the key points are. Third, about search. How do you apply for it? If you have a friend who wants to apply, they are absolutely welcome. You see, now I've become someone who does sales. What do you think about that? If you want to apply for anything or need support, you're welcome to reach out to us. Third, if you're talking about the testing part that Anson mentioned, or if there are any issues with other buyer requests, or if you're stuck somewhere, you're always welcome to discuss it with us. Moving on, the fifth point is about supplier training and collaboration. Oh, this is incredibly important, and we truly welcome your participation. If needed, some brands have already scheduled meetings with me, but the timing can be a bit complicated to coordinate. We can take it slow. After you finish your internal discussions, if you have your own suppliers, we can set up a joint meeting to talk things through. It can be with smaller local niche suppliers or much larger global corporations. You're more than welcome to reach out and get in touch with us, even if it's just for a brief private one-on-one meeting, to make things even smoother and more immediate for you. If you have any additional questions at all, please do not misunderstand. You are always welcome to invite us. And finally, there is the sourcing network. We will do our very best to remain neutral, and this is the essential foundation that the T Institute can provide for you. And under this, connecting everyone as well at our regional office in Hong Kong. One of the core objectives we want to achieve right now is that we have deep knowledge of both brands and factories, and we know Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 suppliers. We are also connected with various NGOs and stakeholders related to sustainability. Our hope is to connect everyone so that all these different parties can truly benefit. This is what we are focused on. Additionally, before I finish, I would like to mention a brand new product of ours called the Testex PFAS testing solution. Anson mentioned it earlier, but what I want to say is that what makes it different in the industry is that, as you can see, the first step is total fluorine, and also the second is target PFAS. So there are two. Actually, this is a requirement of the OEKO test, which covers the OEKO test. But the third key point is something rarely seen in the industry. We call it non-targeted PFAS, and this is developed by our professional team. And in fact, you need talent in this area to be able to achieve this. A screening section is not just about screening, it is also a testing section that corresponds accordingly. As for PFAS, everyone now knows that the industry is facing increasingly strict regulations. France, for example, is extremely strict, almost unrivaled. I wonder if the state of TestX will provide a viable solution for me to achieve entry into the law. The answer is yes, we can help you. This specific option and this support, this represents an entirely new and innovative product line. In response to these growing concerns, because every person in the industry is currently very focused on PFAS. Besides OEKO-TEX, it also wants and is actively seeking out more additional things. Because there are many cases of recalls and not many third parties can handle it. So we have newly launched this TestX PFAS solution to the market. It is not just a single product, but a versatile system that flexibly assists the entire industry to effectively address the ongoing PFAS issue. Do not wait until problems occur to take the necessary proactive steps. Take action, no matter if it's what I just mentioned. Recent modifications in the upstream supplier certification system are intended specifically for PFAS screening. Alternatively, these changes might be driven by specific regulatory requirements. I sincerely hope that we, as a dedicated professional institute, can serve as a reliable partner to everyone involved and provide the necessary support you need. That is all I have to share for my part of the presentation today. Please help us stay connected by subscribing to our monthly email newsletter for more updates, because you will receive all the information. So you won't miss out, even if I'm the one following up. If you're wondering why you didn't know, you can just keep an eye on our newsletter. We also have social media links. Please follow our LinkedIn. We regularly post some very interesting content that you can check out. In addition, our communication channels. Besides email, we also have WhatsApp and WeChat. These two are TestX Hong Kong's official WhatsApp and WeChat accounts. After you add us, we might communicate with you about documents and such. For applications, we mainly use email as the primary method, but for some quick questions, or if you sometimes want to communicate instantly, it's convenient to use your phone when you're out and about. You can use these two apps to communicate with us. That's all for today. Thank you all.
Hello, thank you, and let's start the Q&A section. I will. I have a question from the Q&A section from Ari Low. Thank you. I will read it out and answer.
Okay.
What kind of documents should we submit for next year application? Just only one piece of upstream supplier or whole upstream information?
Actually, the document you need to submit is just like what you did, do in normal practice. We normally request trading documents from the direct supplier, and also if you have the certificate from the upstream supplier, you can provide this certificate copy to us, and then we can treat this as a base certificate. Yes, and some of the tasks can be waived. Yeah, so the principle is like that.
Thank you. So it's just follow the normal practice. Submit the all required information listed in the application form, and our colleagues will tell you what is missing. Basically, you can just declare your tier one, which is we said direct supplier here. So thank you, Ari. Is it any other question from you? And Do you have other questions? Maybe you can just raise your hand. We can adjust one by one. All right. We will open this Q&A chat box. Please feel free to type the question here. We will collect all questions from the afternoon and morning sections and consolidate a list about Q&A so that everybody can have a look. So regarding the 2026 update, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. And I think it's all for today. Thank you for joining us. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.